YouTube? It's Little Rock the Cutie, 2005, also known as Andre, back here with ya. I'm actually battling a migraine headache right now, but I figured I can't let you guys down, and I decided to go ahead and do a video for you guys. And this is actually a response to a couple people, including Movie Collector 666 as well as Mood 616. And this is going to be my top Stephen King adaptations. Now, I've seen most of you guys have done a top 10, but I couldn't narrow it down to 10, so I decided to do a top 15 because there's just a bunch that I really like. So let's get started with, first of all, an honorable mention, and that is The Green Mile. This is one that Mr. Movies, etc. included in his contest entry for our 100 subscriber contest, and it's actually one that I've only seen bits and pieces of, but one of these nights I'm going to have to sit down and watch it because everybody says it's really good. It's like a 3-hour movie, but it's one of my mom's favorites, and since she said it was really good, I decided to pick it up. And now we're going to actually get into my top 15 list. Starting at number 15 is It. Now, this movie and Poltergeist ruined my image of clowns when I was like 6 years old, especially this movie in particular. And it's one that just scares the shit out of me to this day, and I have never been the same since the first time I saw it. I do not like clowns. I hate them with a passion, and I remember my mom used to dress up as a clown, and actually after I saw this and she would do that, I would run and hide. And like I said, this movie has just ruined my image of clowns. Number 14 is one of my personal favorites and a very underrated one. It is Maximum Overdrive. This is another one I saw as a kid and became a huge fan of because I love some of the actors in it, including Emilio Estevez and Yardley Smith, who most of you know is the voice of Lisa Simpson. But this is one I think everybody knows about, and it's about when the Earth passes into the tail of this rogue comet, and all the machines in the world come to life and start killing people, and this group of people is trapped in a truck stop, and it's surrounded by these trucks that are circling it, kind of like how in the Wild West the Indians would circle up on the wagon convoys to attack them. But this is a really cool one with a powerful score by AC/DC. I actually have the soundtrack album on my computer. I used to have it on CD until it got stolen, but that's Maximum Overdrive. Number 13 is actually one I haven't seen on anybody's list, and it's another one I saw as a kid with my grandma that both her and I really liked. It is Sleepwalkers. Now, Stephen King actually didn't write a short story or a book based on this one. This one was actually written for the screen, and it's actually a modern-day vampire tale about these different kind of vampires that drain the life force from young women. And the cool thing is, they're actually afraid of cats, which I don't know if you guys know this, but I happen to love cats, even though I have a dog, but I've always been more of a cat person. But actually, since we have a dog, I have to admit I love my dog, but I'm actually a cat person. But this was a really cool one with a young Brian Krause, who most of you may know as Leo from Charmed, and he did a really good job in this. But that's Sleepwalkers. Number 12 is another one I've never seen on anybody's list, and I think it's a very underrated one. It's another one I saw with my grandma as a kid, and it is The Dark Half. Now, this one was based on Stephen King's book and directed by George A. Romero. And this one was actually another really good one. It's about this writer who has this alter ego, kind of like Stephen King did with Richard Bachman. And as you can see, it's got Timothy Hutton as the lead, and he's the writer. He's got this alter ego named George Stark, and he actually kills off his alter ego, but the alter ego actually comes to life and starts killing people involved in the writer's life. And This was a really, really good one. Very, very underrated in my opinion. If you haven't seen The Dark Half, I would give it a look. I think you may enjoy it. Number 11 is actually another one I haven't seen on anybody's lists. It is Sometimes They Come Back. Now, I had actually never seen this in years, but I caught it on TV one night, and then my bro, who I've known since I was 9 years old, my best friend for 21 years, little Crazed 25, he picked this movie up for me on DVD, and I watched it again, and I absolutely love it. I think it's another very underrated one based on Stephen King's short story. It's another really scary one. If you haven't seen this, I would recommend you give it a look, but the DVD is out of print. But if you can find it for a good price, I would recommend you guys pick it up. But that's Sometimes They Come Back. Number 10, once again, another one I haven't seen on anybody's list, and I've actually never seen this one, but my mom recommended I check it out, and it is Dolores Claiborne. This one stars Kathy Bates and Jennifer Jason Leigh, and Kathy Bates is actually accused of murdering the woman she works for, and her daughter, played by Jennifer Jason Leigh, has to come back and she has to actually fight for her mother, and they have to piece together the past and the present because there's a whole backstory involving Kathy Bates' character, who actually murdered her husband, Jennifer Jason Leigh's father. I won't get into the whole backstory, but I would recommend you guys check this out because I'm going to check it out myself one of these days. I may do a review of it, but I'm not sure if I will or not because I'm kind of busy with viewer request month. So, actually, if you guys want to see me review this one, I may watch it and check it out, and I'll give you guys a review. But that's Dolores Claiborne. Number 9 is actually one I saw on Mood 616 list. It is Children of the Corn. Now, this is another one I saw as a kid, and it scared the shit out of me. But it's one that I love to this day, and actually, it's one that this is the one that made me afraid of cornfields. And if you know about the state of Michigan, there's a lot of cornfields all over, and with me, I just look at them and I start shaking because I never know what's out there. I mean, it's just really creepy to think about. I mean, this whole story is just really creepy, and I love Linda Hamilton's performance in this movie. She actually did this the same year she did Terminator, which was '84. Of course, that's the year I was born. But that's Children of the Corn. Number 8 is actually one of my personal favorites. It is Pet Sematary. Now, I've actually seen this in a couple lists, and I decided to include it in mine because it is one of my favorites. It's a really, really creepy one. I think everybody knows this one. It's got a phenomenal performance by a young Miko Hughes, who some of you know as Dylan in Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and he did a good job in this, playing a little creepy demon kid who, well, before he becomes a demon, he gets hit by a truck, and his father buries him in the Indian burial ground behind the pet cemetery, and of course he comes back to life and actually starts killing people, which I thought that was a really cool way to take the story. And I've actually heard Stephen King in interviews say that this was actually the most painful and personal story for him to write. I read the book when I was a kid, and I think it's actually the only Stephen King book I've read. I would love to read some more, but I have a hard time finding books in this town, as I really don't go to the public library very much because I don't really like to go there because it's run by this old bitch who has a grudge against me. But I won't get into that. But that's Pet Sematary. Number 7, I actually saw a few weeks ago with my mom. It's another one from her collection. It is Needful Things. Now, if you guys haven't seen this one, I'd highly recommend you check it out because it's a really cool one. And I'm actually not going to get into the whole story of it, but this is one that was really great. It's got a great performance by Max von Sydow and also Ed Harris, who is a really talented actor and is an actor I really like. But that's Needful Things. Number 6 on my list is Misery. Now, this one I found to be really, really creepy, and it deals with the whole obsessed fan thing, and as Stephen King said in an interview on Bravo's 100 Scariest Movie Moments, because there was a scene from this included in there, and he said he's got some really nutty fans. Same thing with George Romero. He's met some nutty fans of his too. but the scene that actually included in Bravo's 100 Scariest Movie Moments is a scene that actually scared me to death, and it's the scene where James Caan gets hobbled, and when I saw it, I was just like, holy shit! But that's Misery. Number 5 on my list is The Shawshank Redemption. This is another one I saw as a kid, and it's one that was really powerful to me. It's one that I still love to this day. I love the whole story, and it's another really great, powerful drama, and it's one I think Stephen King did a really good job in writing, and Frank Darabont did a good job in writing and directing this movie. But if you haven't seen this one, and I don't know any of you that haven't seen this is one I would highly, highly recommend. But that's The Shawshank Redemption. Sorry if my voice is cracking a little bit. It's a really hot one here in Michigan today. But number 4 on my list is another personal favorite of mine, and one that really, really scared me. It is Christine. Now, I think everybody knows the story of this one. It's about this killer 1958 Plymouth Fury, and the cool thing about this one is that the car can regenerate. The car can't die. And that is actually the coolest thing about it. Because Keith Gordon's character, he actually finds this car, and he ends up fixing it up, and it ends up taking him over. And the cool thing about it is there's these bullies that pick on him, and the car actually goes out by itself and kills every one of the bullies. The coolest scene in this is actually the gas station scene when Christine pulls out of it on fire after it blows up and goes after the lead bully. I thought that was like one of the coolest scenes in the movie, except for the ending with the final battle with Arnie's best friend and his girlfriend, and they finally end up destroying the car with a bulldozer. But the ending left it open for a sequel, which I'm surprised never happened. I wish they would come up with some idea for a sequel to this, where Christine actually comes back from being turned into a block. Because if you remember the ending, you see the bumper kind of move a little bit, and it's like, there could be a sequel there. At least that's what I thought. But that's Christine. Number 3 on my list is one I've seen in everybody's list that I've seen, but it is The Shining. This is one that Jack Nicholson did a phenomenal job in, and it's probably one of his creepiest roles ever, and it's one that I cannot get enough of. This is one that I watch on a regular basis. I did see the TV version, but I'm not as big a fan of it as I am of this one. And I know Stephen King is not a fan of this. That's why he made the TV version. But I actually like this one better than the TV version because it's way different than the book from what I've heard. But once again, I've never read the book. But like I said, I'd like to get my hands on some more Stephen King books to read them. But that's The Shining. Now my top 2 are actually kind of cheats because they're the first one and a sequel. But number 2 is actually another one I haven't seen on anybody's list, and it's a very, very underrated one in my opinion. But it is Firestarter Part 1 and Part 2. Now, I like the first one better than Part 2 because it's got a young Drew Barrymore in it, and it's the movie that actually made me have a crush on her when I was 7 years old. And if you don't know the story of this one, it's about this girl who has the power to light fires with her mind, sort of like Carrie has telekinesis, but Drew Barrymore's power is actually called pyrokinesis, and she ends up getting captured by this government agency called the Shop, who wants to use her as a weapon. And the ending of this is absolutely phenomenal. And I did watch Part 2 a couple weeks ago. I did a review of it for Viewer Request Month. It's up on the channel. But I am actually going to review the first Firestarter for Viewer Request Month pretty soon. So keep an eye out for that. But that's Firestarter. My number 1 pick is also kind of a cheat because I'm including the sequel. And it is Carrie and The Rage Carrie 2. Now, I love both these movies pretty much equally because they're both phenomenal, but if I had to pick a favorite, I would go with the first one because I love the cast. I love Sissy Spacek's performance, and I'm surprised that her and Piper Laurie didn't get Oscars for their performances. It's also got a young John Travolta in it in his first movie role, along with people like Nancy Allen from RoboCop, and also PJ Souls. If you remember her, she's the bitch in the red hat. And actually, when John Carpenter saw Carrie, he wrote the part of Linda in Halloween specifically for her. But that's Carrie. And also, The Rage Carrie 2 actually continues the story of the first one, and it deals with this girl here on the cover who's actually Carrie's half-sister and has the same power as she does, and she doesn't know much about her powers, but she knows she can make things move, and she really doesn't like having that power, and she's kind of an outcast like Carrie is, but this one actually revolves around this group of jocks who sleep with girls as a game, and they rate them by points. And Jason London from Dazed and Confused, he actually ends up falling in love with the lead girl, but the rest of his jock buddies play a prank on her, and she ends up totally destroying this house party in an even bigger blaze of revenge than Carrie did in the first one, which is really cool to see. If you haven't seen Carrie 2, I would highly recommend you guys check it out. I think it's a very underrated sequel. And it also actually has Amy Irving. If you remember her, she played Sue in the first one, and she actually survived the prom scene. But she comes back in this one as a counselor at the new high school, and there's a really powerful scene in it where she shows the girl here, her name's Rachel, she shows her the old high school and what Carrie did, but Rachel actually doesn't believe that she has these powers, but in the end, because she finds out about the game and why her best friend killed herself, it sets her off, and her revenge is just amazing and powerful. It's just a phenomenal movie, and very, very underrated. Like I said, if you haven't seen The Rage Carrie 2, I'd recommend finding it and picking it up for your collection and checking it out. But that's Carrie 1 and 2, and that was actually my top 15 Stephen King list. It was hard to put together because there's a lot of them that I like, but between my mom and I, we don't have very many in our collections, but we each have different ones. But, I'm sorry, my ear itches. And, like I said, that's my top 15 Stephen King adaptations. And once again, this is Little Rock for Cutie 2005, also known as Andre. I may be back with a couple more videos today. I'm going to try and battle this headache a little bit, but I will be back later today. And, like I said, once again, Little Rock for Cutie 2005, also known as Andre, telling you to enjoy life, enjoy some Skittles, enjoy some Starburst, and in the immortal words of Chris, eat some chicken. I'll see you guys later.